Good evening. Design Review Board number 1, public meeting of February 9th, 2012 is called to order. Please refrain from talking amongst yourselves during the meeting, and please turn off or put on vibrate all cell phones and pagers. If you need to talk, please leave the meeting room. Anyone who wishes to speak, including applicants, is asked to completely fill out one of the speaker's cards provided at the table by the front door and submit it to staff. You'll be called to present a case or speak on a specific item as desired. Anyone who wishes to be re-noticed about a project must completely fill out one of the postcards provided at the table by the front door and submit it to staff to receive notice of subsequent meetings. Current DRB agendas are available by calling our DRB hotline at 818-548-3171 or by visiting our website at www.ci.glendale.ca.us. A handout describing the procedures of the meeting, possible board decisions, and DRB reconsideration and appeals is available at the table by the front door. Please note that appeals must be filed within 15 calendar days of the DRB decision date. The chairperson may reorder agenda items at their discretion. Roll call. Mr. Ellis.
Present.
Mr. Insua. Absent. Ms. Palmer.
Here.
Mr. Simonian.
Present.
And Mr. Yu is absent. Report regarding the posting of the agenda. The agenda for this meeting was posted on the bulletin board outside City Hall at or before 5 p.m. on February 2nd, 2012. Oral communications. Is there anyone in the audience that wishes to speak on an item not a part of the agenda? Any cards? Okay. Great. We'll roll down to the review calendar. Staff does have 2 announcements. The first one is staff is requesting a continuance of the third item on the agenda, which is 1 PDR 2011-056-A. The address is 418 East Glen Oaks, and staff is requesting a continuance to February 23rd. Is there?
I'll move to continue PDR 2011-056A to a date certain of February,
23rd.
23rd. Thank you.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay, there has been a motion to continue the item 1 PDR 2011-056A to February 23rd, 2012. This will be a roll call. Mr. Ellis?
Yes.
Mr. Simonian?
Yes.
Ms. Palmer?
Yes.
Great. The second announcement is we have on the agenda the election of a new chair.
Do you want to go ahead and elect a new chair? Or do I wait?
Well, Mr. Insua had put in his
He's already
request.
Okay, well, that's fine.
Right.
And we can go ahead and do that because we're going to be -1 next.
We're going to be -1 next one. Well, in that case, I'll move that we nominate Mr. Ellis.
I'll accept.
I'll second.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm just writing this down. Okay. Okay. Was there a second?
She said.
Okay. This will be a roll call. Mr. Simonian?
Yes.
Ms. Palmer?
Yes.
And Mr. Ellis?
Yes.
Great.
I'd have been shot.
Congratulations, Mr.
Thank you.
Ellis.
You want to run it, or we'll pick it up next time, or you want?
Thank you for your service, Board
You're
Member
outta here.
Palmer, and
She's
welcome
outta
to
here.
the gavel, Board Member Ellis.
Okay. So what do you got here?
This one,
Yeah, I got agenda.
this one, and this one.
Okay.
I'll help you out.
Thank you. Please do. All right. So our first case is PDR 2011-033B, 1241 Boynton Street. It's a facade room legalization, and Mr. Nizarian.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Board members, as you mentioned, case number is 1 PDR 2011-033B, located at 1241 Boynton Street. This project was in front of you on September 8, 2011, with the recommended facade renovations, which was already done, and at the time it was a legalization of facade improvements, and there are relevant exhibits behind you that was presented in on September 8, 2011. At that time, board decided to return it for redesign with comments and conditions. The subject property features a multifamily building with 28 units that was built in 1959. There are 2 driveways to the sides of the buildings that lead to the parking at the rear. There's a middle courtyard with a pool, and no changes are proposed to the site planning or the massing of the building. The changes are done to the exterior, mainly to the front, and window change-out throughout the building. Based on the 7 conditions added by the board on September 8, 2011, the applicant has gone back, redesigned the project, and has come back with a new design, which is also available directly behind you on the board. And staff believes that the changes done from the last proposal are significant enough to support the project and recommend approval as proposed. Main changes that took place was to remove the foam trims and provide more vertical elements such as wood trims running vertically. Some of the windows have been resized at the front, and the arched entry piece, or the element that ties the 2 buildings at the front, has been redesigned, and it is actually a trellis that matches the previously existing, the very original building, of which there are pictures also available. You can look at it, and currently what's out there is the elevation drawing to the left with the wood, with the foam trims. That's what's there today. That was done illegally. And the picture that you're looking at, that is what was originally in the 50s built. That's what was built.
I see.
And now it's being proposed to be changed to the elevation drawing to the right, which is, as you can see, somewhat similar to the original building. So, and it's a little confusing. If you have questions, please ask me.
Is the stonework that's proposed, is that already on there?
That is also already on there, correct. And that's being proposed to remain. However, some of the other things will change as far as window size in the front. The rest of the windows throughout the building are also being proposed to be legalized because they were changed as well. But the front is where the main changes took place, and the architectural design or the style was altered, and an attempt has been made to go back to the original design as close as possible.
Is the applicant replacing the windows, or have the windows already been replaced?
They've been replaced already with vinyl nail-on windows.
Okay, and those were replaced around the building?
Correct.
And
I
I thought they were not replaced.
that's a good applicant.
okay, so we'll verify that with the applicant. But as far as the front is concerned,
Yes,
we think they were replaced in the front,
they have been replaced in the front.
and this picture really, which matches.
That is what's there today, correct,
And that matches the rendering on the left,
on the left.
and that's what came in front of us last time.
Yes, September of
In
2011.
September,
And
that's right.
the rendering to the right is what's being proposed today to be
Okay.
changed to.
And the vertical elements, is that some sort of a metal?
Those are
material?
wood,
Those are wood.
yes. And also a wood trim at the parapet height is also being proposed versus the foam trim that it has been illegally constructed.
I see. So it has a wood trim at the top here. This is going to be a wood material,
That's correct.
and this is going to be wood, and this is plaster.
And that's a wood trellis.
This is a wood trellis.
Yes. That is very similar to the previous one that originally existed on the building.
And the Google picture actually has a little more of a three-dimensional picture of it, and it's pretty intricate.
The trellis will be very similar to what you see
I
there.
see. And has applicant provided details of that, of what that's going to look like?
No. I did have a conversation with the applicant over the phone to verify whether it's going to be a three-dimensional trellis or is it just a three-dimensional wood piece.
Right.
He said, no, it is going to be three-dimensional wood trellis. Very, very similar to the original one.
We don't yet have details on that, Board Member Simonian, but obviously you can ask that those be required prior to permits as a condition of your approval if you do so choose to approve.
I have a question again on the windows. In the staff report, it states the front windows to the right side have been redesigned to meet egress codes. Are they different than the left
Yes,
side?
if I may approach the board, I'll show you. These windows here, they have been redesigned to meet egress because I guess the height didn't meet the code, and although it's a slider, the middle piece is actually a fixed window. When you slide this open, none of these two had enough openings for egress.
It's not on the left side.
Correct. So
Okay.
you can't really see it here, but see on the drawings, they have been resized.
I just didn't
to-
understand.
Yes.
More questions I have.
And we had requested that the facade wrap around on the
Yes, it
side.
does to a certain degree. Let me also show you. It does over here on this side, and it stops right where the windows are. And over here it stops at some point where there's no logical stopping point unless you drag it all the way to the window. Quite a distance. So they have tried to wrap it around though, yes. That was one of the conditions, you're correct.
And there were both, there's driveways on both sides,
That's correct.
east and west side.
That is correct. The landscaping also has been redesigned to provide drop-tolerant landscape lines.
Any other questions? I'd like to hear from the applicant, Mr. Kuzmano. If you can approach, please state your name and your address for the record.
Michael Cusimano, 101 South First Street, Burbank. As staff mentioned, we were here in September, and the Design Review Board made a number of suggestions at that time. We instructed our architect to meet with staff to incorporate all of those suggestions, and there was a series of meetings between myself, staff, and our architect, and then follow-up meetings with the architect to try and incorporate all of the issues that were raised. And so the plan that we bring back to you today, we believe, reflects all the comments that were made in the September hearing, and so we bring it back to you for your review and hopefully support. Thank you.
Any questions?
I have a question regarding the stonework on the front.
Yes.
It may just be the drawings. Are you removing any because as the picture shows, the stonework is almost up to the bottom of the windowsill, and on the plans, it's only about 2 feet high.
I mean,
You're just leaving
Yeah,
it
we're,
as is.
yes, the proposal is to leave the
Okay.
stonework as it is, which would be about 2 feet high.
Okay. That's fine.
Have the windows in the front of the building been replaced already?
Yes.
And what about the windows on the sides and the...
Some of the windows have been replaced, some of them have not. Any of the, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Do you plan on replacing all the windows, or is this just to legalize whatever has been changed?
The windows in the front were changed for aesthetics initially, and so there's new windows there now, and some of the windows that needed to be replaced because they were from 1959 were replaced. Any windows that don't meet the ingress-egress, and as staff suggested, you've got a large fixed panel with small windows, which exist in a lot of buildings, but since we're out there working, any windows that have those conditions will be replaced as well
Around the building?
around the building.
And insofar as the stucco at the front of the building is concerned, are you going to re-stucco the building, or are you keeping the existing stucco?
There will be some restucco work done because there's elements that are being removed. So when the foam comes off, we will have to restucco those elements as is necessary. And also, as we put on these three-dimensional vertical elements, they're not just flat, they protrude out. So we'll need to open up those walls to create attachment points, for seismic points, all of those types of things. So there will be some plaster work done.
And what sort of, because we don't have any details, how do you envision that detail looking like, that wood detail?
Yeah, I think the intent was not to get too far ahead of the process without getting some input from the board, and so to go and create the actual construction details would probably be premature. But I guess my expectation would be that there will be attachment points on vertical rows, and that the trellis work, so to speak, will be attached to that, so it will actually pop out from the building as opposed to being planted on the building. But again, those will be. My suggestion would be that our architect will meet with staff to develop those details.
And the three-dimensional trellis that's being considered, is there a reason you're going back to the original as opposed to designing something new, or what is the intent there?
The intent was to follow the direction that was provided by the board, and so the flavor that we left with when we left was to kind of figure out what was there before and put it back. If there was some other direction, then we're certainly willing to look at that. Quite frankly, the piece that is proposed to be reconstructed is really a tricky piece to kind of put back in there. Would not be my choice to put that kind of tricky wooden structure back in place, and that was one of the reasons we took it down. But again, it was put back, really because that's kind of the direction that we left with last time.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any more comments? We have no other cards. I'm going to close the public portion of the hearing. Mr. Simone, do you want to?
Okay. And really looking over the set that's been provided to us, I would really categorize this as a lighter set as far as detailing and specifications are concerned. So that's why there's a lot of questions. When we're talking about remodeling a facade and adding wood elements to it, specifically vertical elements, and so much of it, it makes a difference how that is executed. It could look really tacky, or it could, be meaningful and integrated and be part of the design. And the design really needs to be incorporated into a style. What is the style that we're going after? What are we trying to accomplish? It seems as though there's really no direction here. It had been remodeled into, I guess, some sort of a Mediterranean motif, and that's being now converted back to some sort of a mid-century look, which is, I guess, a nondescript mid-century design. But there's certainly a lot of details that could be incorporated into it. So that is lacking, and so it's hard for me and this board, I think, to quite put our finger on it and to approve this thing, because there's just an overall lack of detail. We're accustomed to seeing window sections of how the sill and the trim actually come together with the window. We're used to seeing cut sheets of the windows. If we are considering replacing the windows around this building in areas that don't meet building and safety's egress standards, then there's going to be portions of this building and the stucco that are going to be affected. But there's no study as to what that is and which windows that is and how is that going to affect the properties next to it, and how would it look from the properties next to it. We were asked to wrap the facade around, and there's really no details of how that terminates. So it's hard to provide staff with direction and say, well, go ahead and receive details from the applicant, because there's no clear understanding so far as what the direction is that we want to take with this, or what direction the applicant would like to go with it. You have an opportunity to redesign this building into something more. You're spending money on it, you're going to spend efforts on it, and the design that's being presented to us looks 50, 60 years old. And So it's probably not to your betterment or the neighborhoods or and so forth. So I'd like to hear what the rest have to say, but that's just my initial thoughts on this.
Ms. Holman?
Well, now that the windows have been brought up, I know this is just a facade redo, but the facade concerns the entire building. And if the windows are going to be replaced one at a time, depending as they fall apart, I would think you'd want a program showing the whole perimeter of the building where those revised windows are going to be, because it's going to change the shape. And to put one at a time, we don't know how long that's going to take. So I would want to see you have a program, how those windows are going to look before they're put in. And as far as the wraparound, I agree with Mr. Simone, and we don't know how that's going to end, but you might consider the wraparound on the south side looks to be several feet, and the building's hundreds of feet long, it looks like, in comparison, that wraparound be more significant on both sides so that it looks like it's part of the front of the building and not just, we asked you to wrap it around, so we'll just go around a foot or two. I would also like to see a detail of that trellis, whether it be as shown in the plan or exploring another type of trellis. I want to see how that's put in. And you might look at the landscaping. I know it's done with drought-tolerant plantings, but the way it's shown, you might want to take some of the plantings out because it's going to completely hide that block wall. Everything's just in rows and layers. You might want to create some more space. I think that's the comments I have for now.
It's interesting. I was going to, and I think I need to say to Mr. Cusmano that you're moving in the right direction for this board member. I mean, from what was built without permit we saw last time till now, it would be good to have some more detail. I mean, I would maybe be comfortable with staff taking a look at it, but I hear my colleagues are not, so that's not going to fly out of here. Losing the foam, not crazy about vinyl windows, but of course it's in the neighborhood of apartment buildings, and they are, acceptable for the code. At this point, I don't know. Yes.
As you're deliberating on which direction to go, maybe we can just let you know what your options are. If you are primarily asking for additional information, you could ask for a continuance of the application. That would then be continued, hopefully to a date certain. In any case, within 6 months, it wouldn't require renoticing, but if it's a date certain, then we can get that back to you as quickly as the applicant can. That is if you're not really asking for significant changes, but really just want more information in order to make a decision. The other option that you have, if you are leaning towards not the approve or approve with conditions like we typically see, is in this case you could ask for a return for redesign, even though this has been before you once before. On the second hearing or meeting in front of you, you do have a choice to deny the application or ask for a return for redesign.
Oh, we do. I thought we only had one shot at that. But that's okay.
Originally in 2008, it was a two strikes and you're out policy. When council revisited that sometime later, I'm not exactly sure when, I think it was maybe 2009, it was, modified so that you could still deny a project after 2 times, and from council's view, if I remember correctly, that was the preference, is so that the board doesn't simply see the same project over and over again. But if there are really only modest changes that are being asked for after the second time, the board does have the option to ask to see it once more.
Okay.
Yeah. Here's my take on it, at least. As far as the intent is for us to try to solve these issues and to move them along. And that's really to the satisfaction of everyone involved, from the neighbors to building and safety to planning to staff. Whenever we have these kind of legalization matters, the idea is to work on it and to move it along. I also concur with Ms. Palmer in that a continuance is in line. We literally need more information than this. So you either got to get a more detailed architect, or you need to spend more efforts on it. But whatever it is, it needs to be taken a little more seriously, because it is something that we don't take lightly, these kind of matters. We've seen single-family homes come in front of us with a lot more detail as far as legalization processes are concerned. So this is a big building, it's a big facade, and of course we need information as to which windows will be affected. As you could imagine, you have a very long facade, so if you start kind of changing out some windows and making them bigger to meet egress standards, that's going to significantly alter the side of that building. And so that's what we want you to start thinking about, and to get us that information first as opposed to later, because then it's going to be difficult for everyone to control that as it moves down the pipeline. Second is the trellis. You've already indicated that you didn't like the way the trellis looked. You're probably not a fan of spending the amount of money that will be required to replace that. So let's come up with a strategy of what do you plan on doing, and that's it. Just tell us what you plan on doing and let us assess that. Insofar as the vertical wood slats are concerned, we're talking about slender, long wood slats. Now, south-facing, a lot of sun is going to hit those things. They're going to start warping. So if you're just tacking them on with some bolts, let's say 8 feet on center vertically, that thing's going to warp, and it's going to look awful over time. So are we really trying to come up with a vertical motif? If so, let's put some vertical metal siding up there, or some vertical metal roofing material that will last 50 years, and it's going to look good, and it's going to work. I'm not telling you that's the direction to go, but I'm just asking you to explore it, because ultimately you're going to have to make that decision, and you might as well make it now for us to assess it holistically. If we're asking you to wrap something around the corner, let's make a meaningful effort. Let's wrap it around the corner. Let's terminate it at a point that makes sense. And so you have one more shot at this to come back with some options, and hopefully we'll be able to, I guess, be taken more seriously in the information presented to us so we could assess it holistically. Those are my thoughts on this.
And I would add to that, if looking at just whatever you decide to do with that trellis, incorporate the gate with it, because the gate sort of goes with this particular trellis. If you change that, the gate is just a foreign object. So the whole thing has to work together. So I would propose that we continue.
Yes, so what we're hearing is that in order to make a reasonable decision, the board needs more information. There is a recognition that as those details are worked out, minor modifications may be made to the proposal, and that's acceptable for a continuance. So here's the list that I have, and I know Mr. Nazarian and Mr. Kiesel are also taking notes, so they'll jump in if need be. The details that you're looking for, this is my list. The types of windows that are being used, how the details around the windows, how the windows are installed, is necessary to know. Which windows are being changed, which are being maintained, and which of the existing non-permitted windows are also going to remain. Detailed information on the trellis is required. The gate that is shown must be integrated into the trellis design. If, as that element is detailed, changes are made in order to make that properly work, that's that's the kind of thing the board does want to see. The board wants to see these details resolved. The vertical wood siding may not be sufficient. Once detailed, the material may change for the same effect, or as it's being detailed, the design might be slightly modified. And the siding really must turn the corner so that it's a three-dimensional solution, as you'd asked for last time. And where that terminates and how it terminates needs to be studied more carefully and detailed properly.
One correction, I think you commented that the gate, and I may have said it incorrectly, the gate design tie in with the trellis. I just meant the gate needs to be an integral part of the design, whether it's the trellis or the building.
Okay.
It all has to tie together.
That's a very good clarification. We also heard a little bit of confusion about where the stone is actually terminating on the, how high does it go, and a concern that that stone detailing may not be working that well with the landscaping. So we'll include that as, these aren't conditions of approval, but we would like to add them to the continuance so that it's clear to everyone what the board is looking for. Did I miss anything?
No.
Thank you.
Like a steel trap.
And do you want a motion to continue to a certain date?
That would be
Yes,
preferable.
and you may want to call the applicant up. You do not have to reopen the hearing in order to call the applicant up to see what would be the best
Pick a date.
date.
Mr. Kuzmano, would you like to?
You don't have to.
Yeah, right. Because, date-wise, what do you think would work for you?
You know, whatever would please the board. I'd like to at least have the opportunity to have a few meetings, not just one meeting, but a couple meetings with staff, an initial meeting to try and gauge which particular aspects they would work, instead of, working like this, but to be working over the counter, a chance to make those changes and bring them back to staff
Right.
prior to coming in here. So 6 or 8 weeks, a reasonable period of
6 to
time.
8 weeks
Six
is
to 8
what you think you would require?
Yeah.
There's a
I mean,
meet-
depending on staff time, I don't want to impose myself and
Right.
say, you've got to meet with me tomorrow. 4 to 6 weeks, it's something that we're going to be on immediately.
I would say at least 4 weeks would be required, but
I say 6 to give them a little leeway.
Yeah, to
Do
give them
6?
some time now, because the architect might not be available right away, and
we have a meeting scheduled for March 22nd or April 5th,
Is that 6 or 8 weeks away?
that's 6
Um,
or 8. Yeah.
roughly, yeah. We're at the 9th now, so it's just under 6 weeks and just under 8
Let's
weeks.
say the April one to
April 8th?
April 5th.
give you
April
plenty of
5th.
time.
That's,
Is that
that
Fine.
works for the applicant, that's working fine with us.
That work.
is that fine? Okay.
Thank you.
Thank
So
you.
that would be continued to
April
8 weeks,
8th.
April 5th?
April
April
April 5th.
April 5th.
Yeah, 5th.
Is there a second on that?
I'll
We
second
need a
it.
second?
All right, so...
Do we need a vote on that?
Yes, we're going
Yes.
to need
Okay.
to vote on that as well. So we have a motion to continue to April 5th, and then a second.
Okay, dive right in.
This is a roll call.
There you go.
You said April 5th, correct?
Correct. That's a Thursday. April 5th is a Thursday.
Is
All
it the right Thursday?
It's the right Thursday.
Oh, good. Okay.
All right, so this is a roll call. The Ms. Palmer,
Yes.
Mr. Samoyan,
Yes.
and Chairman Ellis.
Yes.
Thank you. Motion passes 3-0.
Thank you. It's getting close. It's going in the right direction.
I've looked at it.
All right, our next project is PDR 2011-036A, 1913 Wood Holly Court. It's a new remodel. Mr. Riza?
Yes, good afternoon, Mr. Chair, members of the Design Review Board. The next case item before you is case number 1-PDR 2011-036. Mr. Chair, probably the best way to begin my presentation is to walk the board through the complex plans that the architect has provided. Okay. Okay, Mr. Chair, this site is located on a lot that is 22,532 square feet. It's a double frontage lot with a main driveway access off of Woodhawley Court and a frontage off of Deermont Road. The site has an average current slope of 63%. There's an elevation difference of approximately 100 feet from the bottom of Deermont Road to the top of the existing deck. The existing house is currently 7,228 square feet. The project is being reduced in size in multiple locations, and the reason for this is that currently the existing house is over the floor area ratio. In some areas, it's over the story limit, and by adding square footage to certain portions of this residence, it would trigger a parking count of approximately 4 or 5 car garage for a house of this size. So the architect, the homeowner, various meetings have worked with staff to basically come up with a design that will not push them over the floor area ratio. They're actually reducing the house in size to a total square footage of 6,952 square feet. So roughly a reduction of 332 square feet have been reduced. The only place that they're adding square footage is at the first floor, which is just basically the entryway. I can show you here. It's reflected in this plan. The architect has provided the site plan, very nicely laid out of the existing floor plan and the proposed plan here for the board's review. Colored elevations that show all the design and materials, even a section of what is going to happen with the pool. The pool will be remodeled. Right now, it's currently designed in a lagoon sort of way, sort of fashion. That will be streamlined. It will be remodeled, and I believe actually reduced in size in certain portions. There's a section through it here. The overall deck will not become larger. It will stay the same. Actually, it will become a little bit smaller. The survey that the architect has provided shows maybe approximately 12 inches are encroaching into the neighboring property. That will be taken care of during construction to reduce that portion that is encroaching into the neighboring property, and will be taken care of in construction. I will inspect that at the time. The architect has provided multiple large site plans, floor plans, and a 50% calculation. Another part of this project was, since there are going to be multiple areas of reductions in solariums and in other portions of the design, the 50% calculation was heavily scrutinized. The roof is being edited, but at best shown in the perspective. A more flat roof is being proposed. The existing design has a very 1980s style to it. It has Spanish style in certain areas, which doesn't really make sense, and I believe the homeowners agree to that. So this overall design, staff feels that it's a handsome design that incorporates high quality materials, glass, siding, smooth stucco. Clear glass railing will be replaced and used throughout the new deck. So right now we have 32-inch high railing. A very nice streamlined glass appearance will be proposed. That's about it, more or less, with regards to the zoning matters and regulations. The architect and homeowner is our audience to answer any further questions. We did receive one letter of communication. I believe it's from the owner directly below the property. I can view that on a map that I have. Excuse me. Yes, the residence located at 1955 Dearmont, which is basically right below here, has expressed concerns over the erosion of the site over the many years, and I believe
Satellite dish.
the satellite dish. He's requesting the removal of the satellite dish on the bottom. So that's just wanted to let you know that has been communicated to the board and to staff. And that concludes my presentation. I'd be happy to answer any questions staff may have, or the board may have.
Is there a material board?
The material packet, I believe, is incorporated into the board packet.
Let's see, I have, any other questions with you two?
No, I haven't.
Not right
I
now.
have only the applicant, Wood Holly Corp. from Mr. Whipple. You'd like to, if your architect would like to talk to, I'd need to have him turn in a slip also.
I am the architect.
You are you're the architect. You're not, it's because the applicant. Okay, perfect.
I'm both.
You're up. Here you go. Thank you, sir. Please state
Thank
your
you.
name and your address for the record.
Mark Whipple with Whipple Russell Architects, 631 North Larchmont Boulevard in Los Angeles. Gabriel, thank you. You've covered about everything that I wanted to say. I think the only thing to stress that I'd like to say is that we're trying to work with the existing house as much as possible. It's on a flat pad, but at the top of a hillside. We've carefully avoided significant additions. In fact, the only one that Gabriel mentioned, the only addition that we are proposing is there's a recessed inset front door, and we're simply pushing it out a little bit to give the entry a little bit more scale. But it's within the existing footprint of the floor above, so it doesn't project beyond the face of the building. Rather, our project is removing some geometric elements from the massing of the building, which we think improves it. So specifically on sheet D1.1, and we're trying to illustrate that with kind of a before existing rendering on the left-hand side and proposed on the right. These are views from the rear of the house. You can see on the top left-hand corner, one of the high volume roof elements is dominating the rear facade and kind of giving it an inappropriate vertical scale, where on the right-hand side, you can see we're lowering that back down, projecting the roof out a little bit, so it gives not only protection, but some shadow line, and then sets up a horizontal scale that we're then carrying around to the front of the building. On the next sheet, you see the front elevations. And here the existing building is really in trouble. There's a kind of an aluminum two-story solarium right above the front door. That's being removed and pushed back flush. And there are also two projecting bay windows, one on the left and one on the right, one over the garage and one over the bedroom wing. So by simply removing those and re-articulating the windows, introducing some new materials, we think that and also actually the roof on the right-hand side of the existing above the garage door, we're lowering that also. So those two roofs are really what's dominating and giving the 80s character to the building. So by lowering those two, we're completely changing the scale of the building, but still we're, I think, at 30% of the renovation percentage, well below the 50%, and that's including the window penetrations, new versus existing. And the rest of the project is really re-articulating. So we're going to sandblast the existing plaster. Almost all of it will be new finish coat on the whole exterior, new doors and windows throughout, new railings. The siding that's proposed is a gray composite, not wood. My clients are a little fearful of wood and the weathering issues, so it's a very sturdy, time-honored composite material that we're going to use in a horizontal fashion, boards that are about 8 inches wide. And those are the simple materials. Remove the clay tile roof over the bedroom wing. You can see that on the D1.1 sheet. And replacing that with a nice dark gray shingle tile. And then the third sheet down on the bottom probably best illustrates the change in the roof lines. So you can see the extent of the clay tile that's kind of giving the house the character that it has at the moment in the bottom left-hand corner and the bottom right. We're keeping the two sloped roofs that you really don't see. They don't dominate the front and the rear facades, but they're sort of set back certainly from the street facade. And you can see the two volumes going away, being flattened on the right-hand side. Not that it concerns the exterior, but the interior is dominated by a large central glass and steel spiral staircase. So you can see a little round skylight that's centered and on top of that element. And then the next sheets, we worked with Gabriel and felt that photographs of our proposed materials would be the most suitable way to present. So the outside is basically three materials: white, smooth steel troweled stucco, plaster, exterior plaster, on the D4.1 sheet on the left-hand side. It's actually another one of our projects that we're showing to illustrate the plaster finish. On the right-hand side is the composite siding material that we're proposing. Slightly different scale from this. This is probably 4-inch. We're going to use something like this. But it's got some nice modeling and color. They use 2 or 3 different grays, so it looks a little nicer than something that's consistent in color. On the next sheet, 4 images of pretty standard, but we think pretty elegant half-inch clear tempered glass that would be used on the balconies and also at the perimeter of the pool deck. Simple stainless steel cap on top. And then there's one location flanking the front door where we're going to use some stacked stone. That's in the bottom right-hand corner of D4.2.
I have some questions.
Sure.
What sort of windows do you propose to use?
They're going to be aluminum, anodized dark color.
And insofar as the detail of the windows and the window sills and trims and the window recessing, what have you proposed or what are you considering?
They're all the wall thicknesses will be approximately 6 inches. The section of the aluminum will be about 3.5, 4 inches. So the plaster will return, so they'll be set in, no trim.
Okay. And the two sections that you've provided for the pool, the section A and B, is there a plan that illustrates where these sections are cut?
Yes, but I'm sorry, Mr. Simonini. I have a section. I can provide that to you.
It's fairly easy to understand. One is the longitudinal section. If you stay parallel with the pool, looking at the site plan, that's the long one, and the other's a cross section.
I see.
Oh, there you go.
So the cross section A, this 6-foot opening between the cantilever and the grade, how is this area going to be addressed?
That's all existing at the moment,
Okay.
and we're not proposing any new work down there.
And so this is literally a concrete pile that comes up?
That's right.
So it's just an extension of the caisson that comes up and some sort of a grade beam?
Precisely. And to the left of that is the retaining wall that contains the pool.
I see. And is this area going to be landscaped?
From the caisson, from that column, it's basically dirt from that point down slope.
And is there any landscaping proposed for this area?
Yes, we haven't prepared the landscaping plan, but Gabriel's asked us to do that. I think he's suggesting that be a condition. So I'd be happy to do that. To the left of that pile, between the retaining wall and the pile, is a concrete
Culvert of some sort.
Exactly, pre-ditch.
Okay. And the driveway material that you're proposing?
It's concrete with little ribbons of synthetic grass.
Synthetic grass.
Yeah, just to give it some scale. It's our entry. We don't really have a pedestrian entry as separate from the driveway, so we're trying to give it a little zing so it welcomes pedestrians and cars.
See. So this perspective actually does a good job of illustrating those
Right.
piles and where they meet grade. Okay. have no other questions.
Thank you.
Thank you.
May I add one thing?
Of course.
Our neighbor to the north is here with us tonight. He doesn't wish to speak, but he's come here in support of the project. So I'd like to mention that. And also, the neighbor downslope would be happy to comply with his request, which is removing the satellite dish. My clients purchased the property less than a year ago. They've not actually lived in the house yet, so they haven't had a chance to really maintain the property properly. But with, obviously, the new construction and the new landscaping and so forth, they plan to do so. So both of his requests would be happy to grant.
Any other comments?
No?
Thank you very much.
sir.
Thank you.
Anybody else would like to speak on the project? If not, I'll close the public hearing.
Mr. Chair, I have one.
I should read that letter. Would you like me to do that? Do you want to do it?
That'll be great. What I forgot to include in my presentation that staff recommends approval of this project with one condition, that providing the landscape plan.
Thank you. I guess we have mentioned also we have a letter from a homeowner at 1955 Deermont with requesting about hillside erosion and a obsolete satellite dish, which will be part of the record.
Thank you.
Okay. Your turn, Ms. Palmer.
Well, I'd like to compliment the architect. This is one of those, again, that we get periodically that I think we should put in our example pile of what could be done. I think it's really nice design. In fact, I would have liked the previous applicant to maybe
Stick around.
and just get some ideas, because I think this is what can be done when you really tie everything together. I just want to comment that when the landscape plan is done, it needs to be as good as the house. So it needs to complement it, and that side should be planted. We should probably also make sure that we've got sections of those windows. And, I really have no comments. I think it's an excellent job.
Mr. Simonian.
I concur. I think this is a job well done. It's not an easy task to take a large building like this, especially something from the 80s, and try to make something of it. And not only has the architect made something of it, but I think he's done a wonderful job, and this is going to be a great home moving forward. So congratulations on meeting the architect, and architect, congratulations on coming up with something great for the owners. I really don't have anything to add. When you have a project that's well thought out like this and integrated and detailed, there's really nothing that one architect could tell another architect. There's no guideline issues that are popping up as presented to us. I think a landscape plan is appropriate, and I would try to introduce some coyote bush, if not lantana, on that hillside. I'll do a great job controlling the erosion, and I would try to incorporate appropriate landscaping where those piles are to try to create some sort of a visual, not just to have that exposed concrete. One word of, I guess, caution, as you might say. City of Glendale's green building codes as of this year, you have to be 15% above state of California standards. And so you have a lot of aluminum windows and a lot of south-facing windows and a lot of openings. And aluminum windows and a lot of openings tend to be very difficult to hit that 15% threshold. And so I would, get that Title 24 done as early as possible to see how it would affect it, especially with that big glass on the roof. It becomes very difficult, even if you have the tankless water heaters and this and that. It just, the 15% is difficult with aluminum windows, albeit aluminum windows is the way to go with the modern design. And so that's just a caution of try to get that up front before you get too far ahead into the process. Try to see if you could hit that 15%. It's 150%, actually. But besides that, job well done. It's a wonderful project, and may we wish you a lot of patience in getting it done.
Ms. Wright?
Yeah, thank you for your comments. Not to interrupt the deliberations, but I would just urge the applicant to check on the green building standards. My understanding is that the CalGreen standards don't apply to remodels. If this were considered a new construction, the Cal Green and the 15% above Title 24 would apply. But
Not
I
even if it's an extensive one like this? Then
That's my
then it
understanding.
might not be a point at all, and-
I would urge the applicant to meet the 15% above Title 24, if that's possible, but absolutely check with building and safety on that.
We have, by the way, we've ordered a Title 24.
Perfect.
We're on it. Thank you for your time.
Great. You're done? Oh, I'm sorry. done. Okay. I concur with my colleagues. It's a remarkable remodel. I'd like to wish more of these came through like this. My one comment, which I think Mr. Simonian mentioned, was when you go down on Deermont, that lip and that hillside are really the visual item. You don't really look at the house. That's what you see. And anything that you guys can do to, A, deal with the neighbor's problem and screen that a little bit somehow would be very good. Other than that, I have no other comment. Do we have a motion?
I would move that we approve with that one condition about a landscape plan.
I'll second that.
Okay, we have a motion on the floor to approve with staff's one condition. This will be roll call.
And including the comments that we heard from the board, that the landscaping should be similar in quality to the building design, and to recommend or to, as a condition, incorporate appropriate landscaping around the piles, and a recommendation to look at appropriate plantings such as coyote bush or lantana for erosion control. We also heard a request to provide a section through the new windows. Is that something you'd like to include?
No, I'm sure he will. I just wanted to
Okay,
make sure it was
not a
addressed.
condition. Okay, so if you'd like, we can add those embellishments to the staff condition or leave them off, whatever you prefer.
It wouldn't hurt just to add them.
Okay, that will do.
Great, thank you.
Thank you. This will be a motion made by
I made the motion. Second.
Ms. Palmer. Second by Mr. Simonia. This will be roll call. Ms. Palmer.
Yes.
Mr. Simonian.
Yes.
Mr. Ellis.
Yes.
Motion carries 3-0. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
I think next on our agenda is approval of minutes of last week. And I don't believe we can do this because I wasn't present last
Oh,
week.
then we
You are correct. Yeah.
So I'm going to leave that right on the table.
So we'll take that and put that on the next agenda.
Any other business?
I don't have any.
I move to adjourn.
Thank you. We're adjourned.